Now, there's also been a lot of talk about how the average citizen will experience the trade disruptions, whether they are tariff related or if there are restrictions on imports or even restrictions on exports. And a lot of debate in the United States in particular around whether you're going to see that show up in consumer prices, in corporate profits, in a combination of the two. Who is going to be hurt the most? And how are they going to feel it? I think one of the challenges is it's not always immediate. It's the sort of
Yeah,
issue that creeps in over time, and you may not
yeah,
be able, as an average Joe, to look back over 2 years and see what was the inflection point. As an
yeah.
as an economics expert, where do you expect to see the impacts most acutely, and how long does it take from a changing trade policy to the practical effects for somebody who's going out and living their life?
Yeah, so the policy which is going on at the moment, and specifically since the start of the current administration, um, uh, one thing is that there's a lot of uncertainty, because usually the trade is a subject and the trade policy is a subject where we we pour a lot of thought and effort uh, in making the policy, and then we see, okay, and the changes are usually very gradual. So we make a policy and we say, okay, we're going to impose tariffs on this specific sector, and that is the strategy. But since start of this year, we have seen that a lot of different policy measures being taken and withdrawn in a sometimes same day. Some a policy is announced, and then it is taken back. So this has created a lot of uncertainty. So one thing what I really call a cancer for the economy is uncertainty. No investor will invest when we have such a high level of uncertainty. So that is a big problem, and this has been reflected in the market, in the stock markets across the world, which reacted very negatively to different announcements during this year. Now, how it gonna affect the common man? Of course, if we look at the impact of the tariff, one thing we're gonna expect, and most of the economists and economic analysis, including what we did here at Leeds, suggest that there will be increase in the inflation. And if you look at the last few months since April, in United States, inflation, which was going down, now it started to increase again since April, and it started to increase very gradually. But in looking at the last few months, it's been increasing. And one thing we did notice, that the prices of goods, they are increasing more than, let's say, housing cost, and that shows that these are due to the tariffs. We also expect the economy to slow down. There are different estimates. Our own estimates suggest that the impact of tariff on the US economy would be about half a percentage of GDP growth in the United States in over the next year only. And of course, thereafter there will be negative impact too, and GDP will never revert back to which it would have been had there been no tariff. So that would be output losses. But there are other think tank like Peterson Institute. They put out their analysis, and they are also suggesting that there will be negative impact on the US economy of about 0.6% this year. And for the benefit of your listeners, what does it mean by if there's a point six negative impact on the United States economy? So let's say United States economy is roughly around 30 trillion US dollars. So if you are talking about point 0.6, perhaps you are talking about 240 billion US dollar losses in terms of GDP output, and that is a lot of money on the whole. As an economy, US could suffer. In terms of inflation, we could they are suggesting, the Peterson Institute I'm quoting, they are suggesting that the inflation would be about 1% higher. So you'll pay on average about 1% more for the things you are buying a day-to-day basis. So of course that would put a squeeze on the income of the household and the consumer in the US. and there would also be a negative impact on the unemployment, and specifically those sectors which I think the current administration has a very strong base, for instance agriculture sector or mining or manufacturing sector. They're gonna be affected negatively. There could be perhaps more unemployment in these sectors. So instead of helping, it would really hurt those sectors of the economy which we argue that will be helped by this policy. So this is kind of a bleak outlook which I can portray it, and I would say that most of the think tank and the economist, they are not really far from what I am suggesting, and the consensus is that there are negative impact. There would be negative impact on labor market in the form of increased unemployment, less GDP growth or economic growth, and higher prices.